Hello, and welcome to the Imaging Wire Show. My name is Brian Casey. I'm managing editor of the Imaging Wire. Got a great episode for you today. Our guest is Dr. Aengus Tran. He is CEO and co-founder of Annalise.ai. Aengus, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having us back on the show.
You bet. Always a pleasure. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit of backstory about Annalise and the founding of the company?
Absolutely. So, as I said, one of the co-founder of the company. So previously, I was trained as a doctor here in Sydney, Australia. Immigrated from Vietnam, grew up in Ho Chi Minh City, and ultimately came to Australia to study as a doctor and then ultimately working. During the time that I was trained as a clinician, I had a pretty interesting perspective because I see the health system both from an advanced developed country like Australia, where it's really a place of abundance, one of the best health systems in the world, and contrast that to my home in Ho Chi Minh City, where there's really a big shortage of capacity available. And what really struck me was, even though I was learning all these advanced medicines and rare diagnosis and a really amazing miracle treatment, one of the key problems that I saw in the world was the lack of diagnostic capacity. It wasn't that we didn't have miracle treatment. We just need to do the simple thing, like reading a chest x-ray, like reading a CT brain and a CT chest, which is really bread and butter, but we need to do it at amazing scale. So scale was really the heading, the key problems of our time to solve in healthcare. And that's when I embarked on this journey of building AI in diagnostic imaging.
Was it difficult for you to go from medicine into something as technical as AI?
Yeah, I mean, the background is I've always been a technologist at heart. Growing up, I've always been a programmer and a software engineer. I always thought I'll end up working as in the technology space. So in many ways, medicine was a bit of a detour for me. I wanted to solve the biggest problem in the world with technology, and what's more rewarding than healthcare. So the transition was pretty seamless. Bringing the two worlds that I live in, which is technology and AI engineering and software together. I was AI engineering number one at the company, so that was very comfortable.
Nice. You've come a long way. So Annalise, well, you were founded like relatively recently, correct? And you've grown pretty quickly over the last few years.
So Annalise is one of the youngest AI player in the radiology space. We are just about half as old as some of our other peers, being around for just about 4 years at this point. And within that time, we've done a tremendous amount of things and making really great impacts in the world.
So I was at the European Congress of Radiology meeting just recently, and your chief medical officer, Dr. Rick Abramson, was there, and he gave a plenary lecture that was very well regarded. How did everything go at ECR for you guys? I mean, you seem like you had a pretty high profile.
Yeah, as you know, Brian, we recently received our EU MDR clearance, Class 2, for some of our portfolio product, including our comprehensive chest X-ray and CT brain algorithm, and also secure some key win in the European countries, such as the Unilab network, deployment of our CT brain technology for detection and triage. So we are making a really big intention, stating a really big intention in the EU, and ECR certainly was a great celebrations of that. During the event, we resharing some of the new product launch, including the report generation technology, where we are going from detection and triage into giving radiologists a lot more efficiency by drafting their report. And that was very well received by the players in the space, as well as the radiologists who came by.
Let's focus on reporting a little bit more, because as you mentioned, originally your solutions were kind of the traditional AI for analyzing medical images, and you've got really a ton of indications that you're cleared for, at least in Europe. Can you talk a little bit about the transition to reporting and why you felt like expanding out of sort of the point sources and into reporting was something that you felt like Annalise should do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good opportunity to set the record on this one because, we've always been known as a company that do comprehensive findings. We do hundreds of indications in chest X-ray and CT brain. People typically get on an interview with us and ask, how did you do that? How did you build hundreds of indication over the span of 4 years, whereas the peers been around for over a decade and they only have a handful? That was been the curiosity. But I think the bigger question is why? Why did we build so many indication? And I'd like to share that the plan has always been to draft the reports. And the reason why we went comprehensive is because the radiologists are comprehensive and the report is comprehensive. So comprehensive AI draft comprehensive report, narrow AI draft narrow reports. So for us, the transition is in any way is very logical. In fact, it is part of the plan is to first build a detection tool that can detect all findings on key modality like X-ray and CT. And then once we develop that trust with the radiologist that we are safe and effective, that's when we earn the right to help them with the efficiency component, i.e., drafting some of that into words and allowing them to save time and dictation and writing.
That makes a lot of sense. And Annalise reporting right now is available in 12 different languages?
Yeah, we took a really unique approach in report generation, which allow us to scale out the language. So the way that we do report generation is very different than you would imagine, right? It's not writing word by word in a generative AI type style here. The tool is grounded in what we call a layer of truth, where it's that of 124, 130 findings that are all regulatory clear and approved and validated. And then we have a layer that turns those insight and those findings into structured sentences and the report the radiologists use, which mean that we can translate that to multiple different languages and allowing us to support the wide range of use case, including languages, but also different style and the way that the radiologists like to structure their reports.
And is it Annalise reporting, is that currently being used clinically right now, or is it still in testing?
So we are currently deploying that to some of our earliest users. We are going through all of our current deployment and invite them to start adopting this new paradigm. Like I said, many of the radiologists and radiology group that has used us so far love the fact that it's a safety net. It's detect every findings and preventing them from missing critical diagnosis. They love the fact that it brings critical cases to the top of their work list. And now we're inviting them to take the next step, which is the efficiency in their reporting process. And that is a process that we're going through right now.
All right, very good. Let's focus a little bit more on the triage aspect, and let's talk about the significance of leveraging AI to segregate imaging scans into remarkable and unremarkable, or suspicious and probably pretty low risk. How does AI contribute to being used in this way, contribute to improving the diagnostic process in healthcare?
Yeah, that's the great question. And, it's really come down to this fundamental observation that is radiologists have to treat every scan as if it could contain a life-threatening finding each and every time. Because you never know if a CT brain will come in next in your work list that contain a brain bleeds, or a chest X-ray contain pneumothorax. And that means that health system around the world need to staff and resources their radiology department as if every scan could be that critical case. So in the world of significant constraint that we see around the world, ability for an AI system to go through your unread work list and say, these are the 10 cases that require immediate attention now is incredibly valuable, because that means that within the first 2 hours, you can drink a cup of coffee, knock down that 20% of your work list, and the rest of it is going to be safe. There's no greater feeling than a word than that. And many radiologists tell us this. The different about the way that Annalise is doing this is that we are comprehensively triaging that. One of the concerns that radiologists always said is, if you flag the brain bleeds, that's fantastic, that's super critical. But are you pushing down the aneurysm? Are you pushing down the brain fracture? Skull fracture? Because you only do one thing, it's one trick pony. Whereas with Annalise, because it's really a reverse engineer of the radiologist, it detects every findings on those modality. when we bring a case to the top, it's also done so in relation to different findings. So brain bleed will come higher than a vasogenic edema. That would come higher than a normal CT. So the product that we launch in terms of urgent versus non-urgent, critical versus non-critical, is really a application of the comprehensive AI, where we allow site to define what they mean by critical. And if any of that finding is detected, we can sort their work list based on that and effectively giving them a higher level of quality service to their patient and referrer.
And that's super important. We had a case in the US just in the last few months where a resident on call overnight missed, I think it was a brain bleed on an emergency CT scan. And it ended up being like a multi-million-dollar judgment against that hospital.
That's right.
Because it was just a resident on call overnight. And so having AI be a backup, could potentially prevent that kind of thing from happening.
That's right.
Yeah. So one of the topics of discussion at ECR and then also at RSNA and almost every meeting that we go to these days is the adoption of AI. It seems like everybody kind of wants to get to that nirvana of routine use of AI a little bit sooner than we are right now. What are some of the opportunities and challenges that you see? Maybe first challenges that's holding AI back, and how can we get beyond those?
I do think that there is some way to go for the algorithm and the application itself to become more and more useful, as well as the industry itself maturing and start to going through that cycle of maturation to find funding source and understanding the application that are valuable. And the two sides of the bridge need to come together in order for there to be at scale adoption. I always said to the team at Annalise, the ultimate vision of what you want to ship is an AI that can pre-read the work list and triage critical finding, that when they open a case on the reporting system, there's a draft waiting for the radiologist. And all they need to do is look at the images, review the finding, and sign off. That is almost the perfect picture that if you ask a radiologist, what does your ideal workflow look like with AI, they would describe. But we still have a way to go on getting there, and we're making big stride this year in that vision. So I think some of the opportunity is really coming from AI companies, and which I believe Annalise is charting the course for, building more valuable application that deliver efficiency, safety, and reduce turnaround time for customers, but also the industry and government bodies coming in and starting to identify this as valuable things that should be funded, like any other imaging modality tests that has been done so far.
Yeah. Now, one of the places that has been a success story for you is in your home market of Australia, and you have a relationship with IMED, which is a big imaging or services provider there, and so your AI is being used by something like 1 in 3 Australian radiologists already. Can you talk about what's going on there? Because that seems like it's being used on a really broad scale.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in Australia and some other places in the world is where we get to a point where, if the radiologists go to a barbecue a weekend with their radiologist friend, they are talking about the AI that they're using already because it's just that prolific and common. In Australia, we do have a strategic partnership with IMED. They are one of the founding partners. And with that, they've been adopting the tool for a long time. And what we found is that radiologists really enjoy the safety net. As you said, many radiologists, when they move from a practice that had Annalise into another practice that do not have Annalise, sometimes they describe that feeling as feeling slightly naked.
We're working without a net.
That's right. They're so used to having that quick glance to the right corner where Annalise sit and seeing the safety net. Yeah. That they said sometimes they have a phantom glance where there's no Annalise, but they look up to the right anyway and they see nothing. And that increased that anxiety a little bit. But we see in those scenarios population scale statistics showing improvement in turnaround time, diagnostic accuracy, and love by the radiologist. And that is really promising because it gives you a glimpse into the future of what other health system can get to, and they are starting to see that as well.
That's great. And how do you think that that would be different from a market like Vietnam or a market in a developing country where they just flat out don't have enough radiologists to go around? I mean, how might things be working differently there?
Yeah, I mean, I love to share a story about Hong Kong, right? So, we recently won a public tender in the whole region of Hong Kong, and that is a public tender covering all public hospital. So 43 public hospital, over 200 plus outpatient clinics for our CT brain solution. And the journey is really that story of capacity constraint, right? So they've been in chronic constraint on ability to read scans and process that at the ED department. And they saw the opportunities to use AI to empower the point of care physician, not the radiologist, to be able to help themselves with processing these cases. So I think in some of the part of the world where the shortage is larger, like Hong Kong, Vietnam, and other part of Asia, the willingness to adopt AI technology for efficiency and for quality is going to be much higher. So I think there could be potentially a leapfrog type scenario where because the developed world have constraint, but not as big of a constraint, they could potentially hold themselves back from taking that leap into higher level of automation and support with AI. Whereas in places that like you said, there's no other solution and options. Technology like this is really what the public system are turning to as the key solution.
Wow, that's really interesting. It kind of reminds me of the case of mobile phones, where a lot of developed countries just went straight to mobile phones. They never had landlines, and it was just like,
that's right.
You go right into it. Cool. So Aengus, can you talk a little bit about Annalise.ai's plans for the U.S. market?
Absolutely. So we recently announced at RSNA the most comprehensive FDA clear portfolio for chest X-ray and CT brain. We've launched 12 FDA clearance package in Annalise, and that's what we are bringing into United States from our rest of world offering. And this, follow the themes of comprehensive AI. We really want to solve one modality at a time, and with a big background of algorithms that we already developed, we are bringing that into the US very quickly. So within just the last year and a half, we've had 12 FDA clearance, whereas many of our peers has been around for much longer than we have. It has a significantly smaller portfolio than that. So we see a high velocity of bringing our solution into US. And this will follow the triage and critical care package. One of the findings that we were very excited about was obstructive hydrocephalus. That's also received a breakthrough designation by the FDA. This was the only radiology AI solutions ever receive breakthrough designation. And this indicate, the value of the tool and the path for clinicians to adopting that. We also announced the partnership with Nuance a year and a bit back, as well as at the partnership with Mass General Hospital for clinical validations and deployment of our tool. So there's going to be much more on the Annalise US front that we'd love to share as this year unfolds.
Well, looking ahead, what sort of emerging technologies or trends do you see that you think is going to play a pivotal role in advancing health tech companies and offering solutions for better patient outcomes?
Certainly, in the last few years, the advent of this large foundational model that are trained on a large database of images and text has been some of the key breakthrough in technology. And I do see that there's going to be a big impact on how AI company both build their product, shipped it, and also the experience that will be made available to the end users and radiologists. So at Annalise, we are exploring some of this path ourselves and trying to understand some of that. In due course, we'd love to share more about some of the work that we're doing there. But I do think that there would be some very exciting use case that we can unlock using technology like that in one of the most pressing need space, of all the industry. Health is one of the space where foundational model and generative AI will play the key role in.
Yeah, it's definitely just a fascinating field right now, and all the things that are happening with generative AI, foundation models, and everything else. And we'll look forward to seeing how it develops, and we'll look forward to seeing news from Annalise.ai. Well, Dr. Aengus Tran, thanks so much for being with us today, talking about the company and talking about your vision. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, signing off for the Imaging Wire, my name is Brian Casey.